Hey, what's going on, GameLeapers? This is Iggs, and in today's upload, we're going to be talking about the worst champions you can pick in solo queue for patch 12.17, and this will probably be the case for 12.18 unless some of these champions get really buffed. And there are champions for each role in here, and these stats that we've taken, these are from every single rank, okay? So this isn't specific for low elo or high elo, this is just generally speaking. So to know who the 15 worst champs are going to be, make sure you stick around for the whole video. And if you actually do want to master some of these champions, guys, because if you can master them, you can definitely win a lot more on these champions, which is kind of the case because the higher elo you go, the better these champions probably become. But regardless, to know all the tips and tricks and how to play these champions at the highest level, check out our GameLeap website. Links down below in the description and comment section. Our challenger players and coaches from around the world are uploading daily content for our subscribers, so get that exclusive access by signing up. And let's get into the countdown. Now, starting off at number 15, we have Gwen. Now, this top laner, funnily enough, in higher elos is actually a devastating champion and has really good win rates, especially when she's played in Korea. But for the most part, Gwen is difficult to really make work in solo queue because, well, when it comes to team fighting, she's not the most amazing champion. Her W can be very useful, and of course her ultimate, but you really have to know how to space and kite on this champion. Auto attacks are also very important, and most of the time players who aren't that in tune with the champion will just be getting called out way too much. Also, the laning phase, because of the recent nerfs to Gwen, well, it's not really as good as it used to be, especially the true damage getting nerfed on your Q. So Gwen is definitely a hard champion to master, and because she does have some hard counters, pretty much any ranged champion in the top lane is going to do well into her. So she's also a difficult champion to blind pick, and probably a champion I wouldn't really recommend picking unless you know the matchup's going to be super free. Now, following Gwen, probably the most surprising champion on this countdown, this is Ahri, who is classed as a D tier champion despite having close to a 49% win rate. Now, the reason for this is because Ahri is picked in close to 220,000 matches. So the reason Ahri is D tier is just because she's played so much, and her win rate despite all of this playtime is only in the high 48s. Now, the champion, to be honest, is still actually quite good, and is probably the only champion on this countdown I'd really recommend to any of you guys to pick because she's so versatile. She's a very good blind pick champion as well. She may have some kind of annoying matchups, so champions like, let's say, Sylas, maybe Azir, so I'd probably recommend banning one of them, but this is probably the most placebo on the list. It might revolve around the fact she's very skill shot based, so players in maybe lower elos aren't going to land as many skill shots as those Ahri players in higher elos, which is why her win rate in higher elos is higher. But to be honest, I don't think there's anything wrong with picking Ahri for the rest of 12.17 and probably 12.18 as well. Now, moving on to number 13 on the countdown, we have Thresh. And for Thresh, because, well, just like Ahri, he's a skill shot champion, right? His win rate is in the high 47%, and that's when he's being played in close to 200,000 matches. Now, Thresh innately at the moment isn't the strongest champion in the game. He has been nerfed quite heavily in Season 12, but if you can play the champion, I definitely think you can get LP, especially if you're running something like Glacial into like a double range bot lane. If you land one hook, it can be kind of devastating, but in solo queue, Thresh is just too reliant on his death sentence, and also the champion is hard to play. There are certain combos that even high elo supports don't get right, so if they don't get it right, what hope do the rest of us have? So Thresh is one of a few supports on this countdown. Now, coming in at number 12, we have Akali, and to be honest, maybe Akali beats Ahri as being the most placebo on this countdown because she has a 49% win rate. Now, she is picked in over 260,000 matches in the mid lane, but 49%, and then to class her as D tier, it seems a bit harsh. Now, she is banned a fair bit because she is annoying to play against, right? The Shroud, it's not really interactive, and she can also be played in the top lane and does well against a lot of top laners. If we think about Jax and Camille, for example, they're pretty popular, and Akali counters both. In the mid lane as well, if you're playing some sort of a mobile champion, Akali can do really well, especially when level 6 comes around. So the champion does have a lot of merit, but again, there are so many combos, and she is difficult to actually fully master. But honestly, a bit like Ahri, I think you guys can happily lock in Akali and be sweet. Now, moving on to number 11 on the countdown, we're heading back to the bot lane here and talking about Miss Fortune, but not as an AD carry, obviously, because that is the most broken champion in the game at the moment. I'm talking about Miss Fortune as a support, because Miss Fortune as a support is really popular. So across all elos in over 100,000 matches, that's more than Azir has played as a mid laner, that's more than Zeri has played as an AD carry, so this really speaks volumes as to how popular this pick is. With Leandre's Anguish and the extra AP Riot gave you in your Make It Rain in 12.17, it's almost like Miss Fortune as the AP got buffed, but really her scaling did. So once you actually do get into the mid to late game, that's when you're better, and all you really have during the laning phase is your Make It Rain, and that's it. Like, what else are you doing as a Miss Fortune support? You're not buffing, shielding, peeling, healing your AD carry, so you're literally just a Make It Rain bottom because the cooldown got nerfed as well. Miss Fortune support has taken a hit, which is why she's on the worst champions video. Now, starting off the top 10, we're heading back to the top lane, and we're talking about Gangplank. Now, a bit like Gwen, I think if you can really play Gangplank at a high level, the champion's still very good. But the issue here, the amount of knowledge you have to have on GP is absurd. Like, every single matchup is kind of different, so you have to have insane matchup knowledge. You also have to know how to use your barrels and when to use them, and of course even runes and items. Like we saw Wonder in the LEC finals start Doran's shield with first strike into an Ornn, which is just very risky and greedy and honestly just straight up bad. This is why he ended up getting stomped, so even the pro players get it wrong sometimes. And GP just being a very difficult champion to actually, well, mechanically master, whether it's a one-part combo, the triple barrel combo, throwing your flash in there as well, even just the spacing in the top lane to the melee champions. It's a very difficult practice, I guess, to master, so GP is number 10. Now, ahead of GP coming in at number 9 on the countdown, heading down to the bot lane here, we have to talk about Lucian. Now, I understand that Lucian is picked a lot in pro play, but the reason why is because of his synergy with Nami. And remember, in 12-17, this synergy got hit because Nami's E-proc got nerfed. This means that Electrocute Nami with Lucian is just worse off. Now, Lucian might be able to work with supports like Renata, or Lulu, or even Soraka, right, because of his new Vigilance passive. But the issue here is that Lucian, compared to other AD carries, maybe like Draven, maybe like Misfortune, right, he just gets dumpstered by them. Even if he does have extra scaling now because of the Season 12 bust to him, he is just too difficult to make work. Also, his short range will have something to do with it, so you really have to play precise when you pick Lucian, and one misstep, you're 100% going to die because you will be close to the enemy champions, so he is number 9. Now, staying in the bot lane here, coming in at number 8, we have one of the most picked champions in the game, this being Ezreal. So in close to 550,000 matches, that is over double how much Lucian has played, believe it or not. Ezreal has a sub 49% win rate despite getting picked in close to 20% in games. So the reason Ezreal's win rate is just bad is because the champion doesn't pack that much punch. Even though he got buffed in 12-17, so your arcane shifts cooldown going down, what does this change? Like, your damage doesn't go up, and compared to other AD carries like Kalista, Draven, Misfortune, like there's no competing with them as an Ezreal. So Ezreal is number 8. Now, coming in at number 7 is an assassin from the mid lane. And for LeBlanc, LB's win rate has always been around 47-48%, well, in Season 12 anyway. Now, the reason for this is because LeBlanc, if you think about it, right, during the laning phase, she's quite scary. With the setup from her ethereal chains with her jungler, probably going to result in a kill. But as you start scaling, and even though LeBlanc does scale kind of well, you are a single target damage, for the most part, assassin with skill shots, which means that even if you do jump onto an enemy champion who's alone, you have to land everything in order to one-shot them. And because of the durability buff, right, in 12-10 to pretty much every single champion, it makes these targets harder to kill as the game progresses. So even if you do get rolling and you're like 3-0, 4-0, 5-0 during the laning phase, it's still very difficult to win a game as LeBlanc. So that's why she's number 7. They're staying in the mid lane, number 6 on the countdown. I mentioned him earlier, this being Azir. So in over 80,000 matches, Azir has a 45% win rate. That's across all elos combined, okay? And this probably wasn't the case a patch ago because Azir was kind of strong, but because of the nerfs to his W and also his E's cooldown in 12-17, it's kind of just dumpstered the champion. And if you are an Azir main out there, my condolences. I don't know why Riot nerfed him the way they did. Yes, he was picked in pro play quite a lot, but it's not like Azir in solo queue was really curb stomping everyone. So the champion has been completely gutted this patch, which is why his win rate is the second lowest out of the champions we're going to mention. So Azir number 6. Now, starting off the top 5 worst champions, we're heading back to the top lane, this being Renekton. And the Renekton nerfs this patch, well, they were called nerfs, so your Q's based damage empowered in the standard one, this got nerfed. But the AD ratio in this got buffed, so in terms of your mid to late game, it's actually kind of better. But the issue for Renekton, guys, in solo queue is that, well, there are lots of matchups he doesn't win. So even here, right, we have Teemo, we have Ornn, Alawi, Garen. If we think a little bit harder, maybe for high reloads, there's Gwen. Quinn can be very annoying. Even Graves in the top lane with the buffs, pretty much impossible to win. So lots of people probably see Renekton in pro play, oh, let's pick him, and then blind pick him, and they have a really bad matchup. Their jungler doesn't realize how important it is to play for you. So you just end up on an island in a losing matchup, and the champion, because he doesn't scale that well still, just gets dominated. This is why his win rate is only 47.7%. That's in over 150,000 matches. The champion as well is kind of hard to play, believe it or not, because he has long cooldowns. You have to know exactly how to trade and how you're using your cooldowns against the enemy champions. And in the mid to late game as well, the champion is just so reliant, especially in team fights, right, on having his flash. Like, without it, you just get kind of to oblivion. So Renekton starts off the top 5. They're coming in at number 4, another AD carry on the countdown, this being Zeri, who has a 42.4% win rate. And sorry to all you Zeri mains out there, it took Riot that long to nerf your W's damage, which is really why the champion was OP, and they nerfed so much of your movement speed as well. So the identity of Zeri has really gone from zooming around the map, auto attacking, to just being dead. Like, that is it. The identity is just completely gone, and surely Riot are going to help this champion out in lower elos in particular, because she's really just struggling. Yes, she's difficult to play and might be a little bit hard to master and actually grasp as a champion, because you're not really auto attacking, right? You're just right clicking on your screen. But regardless of all that, it does seem a little unfair what's happened to her, and because of all the nerfs to that that's why she's so high on this countdown. So she's number 4. Now, number 3, starting off the 3 worst champions for solo queue in 12-17, we have Sylas. Now, honestly, a bit like Ahri and a bit like Akali, I don't know what's happening in the mid lane here on this countdown, but according to the stats, Sylas is another placebo bad mid laner, I'm going to call them, because let's be real, do we really think Sylas is bad? There's no way this champion is bad, guys. This champion, because of all the buffs he got a few patches ago, is still so good. Even though he may have copped a couple of nerfs last patch, the point is this, is that Sylas is just innately strong. A bit like maybe Bel'Veth or Master Yi, even though those two champions have insane win rates in every single elo, Sylas is just a little bit more difficult to play if we think about it. If you're playing Master Yi, you just right click. As Sylas, you really have to know how to use your passive. You have to be quick with your fingers as well in terms of clicking the keys, stealing ultimates, using Everfrost, using Stopwatch. Your cooldowns as well will be very low. So it's actually quite intense to play the champion, and you do need some mechanics and probably matchup knowledge as well. Not every matchup in the mid lane is going to be free, especially these days, because of all the sustain nerfs, so second wind getting nerfed, health pots, refillables getting nerfed, right? Does make it a little bit harder to navigate your way out of the laning phase. And against attack damage champions in the mid lane as well, Sylas does not like them. So champions like Yone, Yasuo, even Zed, these matchups can be difficult because think about their ultimates, you're not really going to do much with them. So Sylas is the 3rd worst champion in League of Legends for 12-17 in close to 350,000 matches. Now coming in at number 2 is one of the highest skill ceiling champs in the game, this being Lee Sin. So the blind monk picked in over 260,000 matches, but he has a 45% win rate. Now, reason for this is, like I said, just way too mechanically intensive for a lot of players. There are so many combos you have to learn, even in terms of clearing your camps, what abilities you start with. People don't even get this right, maybe even in higher reloads as well. So like a lot of these champions, there's a lot of intricate knowledge on the champion. So the champion, because of the abundance of potential combos and micro, this is why he is number 2 on this countdown. Now, the worst champion you guys can pick. Now, I don't think she is the worst champion in the game. Let me just put it this way. But this is what the stats are telling us, so don't hate me. Hate the stats websites. This is Yuumi. So in close to 300,000 matches, guys, Yuumi has a sub 46% win rate, and she's banned in over 20% of games. And the reason her win rate is so low is because, let's be honest, most players who are picking Yuumi are attaching themselves to their AD carry and then going to cook dinner, maybe watching a bit of Netflix, maybe their favorite Twitch streamer. They're not playing the game. They are AFK. And what's fascinating about this is that good Yuumi players, well, they're actually kind of annoying to lane against. So this is why Yuumi maybe in high reloads might be a little bit better, and because she scales so well, it is frustrating to play against, right? There are lots of synergies out there that are kind of OP, but these are the stats. They are not lying to us. So a sub 46% win rate for a champion being picked this much, it tells us one of two things, or maybe even two things. The people playing her just don't know how to play her, or two, she really just isn't a strong champion. I think it's much more to do with number 1, but let me know what you guys think of this countdown in the comment section. Any questions, any thoughts? If you did enjoy the video, remember to leave a like down below, and until our next season 12 video, this has been it.